TIMA6211 Portfolio of Evidence Activity 1. For the format, you can type it in Word, you can type it in any other Google Docs or whatever program you want to work with. Very important to remember, please, to export it to a PDF document before you submit. We are only going to mark PDF documents. No Word documents will be marked. So this is very, very important to please remember this. Right, so your format, please a cover page where you indicate your name and the subject. Please don't hand in a PoE where you start with activity 1 and then you just type. No one knows whose PoE it is, so please always start with a cover page like the cover of a book. Then the next page would be your content or index page with all your headings and subheadings and page numbers. Just a note about headings and subheadings. I will explain to you how you have a choice between if you want to use numbering or not. So it's up to you. You type your text in Arial or Calibri 12 font. You use justified line spacing 1.5. And then I'm going to talk about headings, subheadings, numbering. If you want to use a numbering system of 1 and 1.1 and 1.1.1, that is perfect. You may do that. If you don't want to use a numbering system, you may just use headings, or you may just type in a normal essay format like you would do in an English or Afrikaans or any language essay. So that's absolutely up to you. I like headings because that organize my work for me. It's like a textbook. If you have headings and subheadings, it just makes it so much easier for your reader to follow. So if you want the structured approach, you are welcome. Then you use your headings, you use subheadings. I'm going to explain this whole activity using headings, but it's up to you if you want to use it. Please then remember your reference list, very important at the end of this of the PoE, you include your reference list. You don't have to put it after your activity 1, you can put it in at the end of your PoE. And then very important to remember to export it to a PDF document after you have done your whole PoE and have edited your PoE. General guidelines for your PoE. Please do research and planning before you start. That is important with any PoE that you do. Use the IIE Quick Reference Guideline to make sure of the correct referencing format. There's also an article about academic writing that you can read. I have also summarized the article in this PoE document for you, or the guideline document for the activity, and that will be filed under Module Guide and PoE on VC Learn. You will find this PoE Activity 1 PDF. Provide one reference list at the end of your PoE. Indicate your word count for this Activity 1. Very important to export your PoE document to a PDF. You would see that I'm going to stress this and repeat this a few times because of the importance of this. We are not going to mark any Word documents. The naming of your PoE should be, always start with your student number, then your name and surname, and then you indicate that it's TIMA6211 PoE. Please make sure that you submit in the correct module. TIMA for TIMA, we are not going to mark any PoEs that are submitted in the incorrect modules. You first submit your PoE through Safe Assign on BC Learn. Important to remember, do not only use Killen as a source. Please do some research, use other credible resources. Very important, not only blogs. Get ideas from blogs, read the blogs, they are useful. But if you reference, please make sure that you use credible sources so that you can also justify the idea that you get in a blog. Make sure you do research to establish if it's really a good idea. Remember, anyone can write up a blog, anyone with any ideas, and it's not necessarily credible. So please make sure that you do research. Think creatively. Very important. That is a 21st century skill. So please show me that you have already adopted that skill. Integrate theory with practical knowledge. This is very important when you provide examples that shows to us that you can integrate theory with practical knowledge. Show enthusiasm. Be enthusiastic, be creative. Provide creative and engaging suggestions that would positively enhance your teaching. You would see why I say this when we get to the context of Activity 1. Activity 1 is about knowledge of content. So your context that is provided in your PoE Activity 1 is South African teachers in public and a few private schools are to teach using the CAPS document to ensure that they cover the correct content at the correct time. You, an experienced teacher, have a much newer teacher, Mr. Smith, asking you for advice. He has been teaching grade 4 math for 2 years, and school management has now moved him to grade 6 math. Okay, so that is the context. That is the case study. Your instructions. You have to advise Mr. Smith on how the requirements of grade 4 patterns, functions, and algebra, as opposed to grade 6 patterns, functions, and algebra, differ. You have to highlight to Mr. Smith the areas of conceptual progression in the area and describe how the conceptual complexity increases by using examples to make your points clearer. So just by looking at the first two points, you would see that there's a comparison between this PoE Activity 1 and your first ICE task. Remember, you have already done the conceptual progression and conceptual complexity, how it increases from grade 4 to grade 6. And you provided examples to make your points clearer. So you can use your ICE task and just add on and make improvements on your ICE task to fit with this activity by checking the rubric to make sure that you have addressed everything. You also need to focus on the first point here to make sure that you explain how the requirements of grade 4 differ to that of grade 6 in the content area patterns, functions, and algebra. Then the second part of this Activity 1 is where you need to encourage Mr. Smith to make more of an effort to use ICT in the classroom by giving him convincing reasons and practical suggestions. This also links to one of your ICE tasks, so you can also use the research that you have done for the ICE task to promote why or to justify why you should use technology in your classroom. Give reasons why it is useful to use technology, and make practical suggestions. Give examples of nice apps or technology that he could use to enhance the learning of his learners. Then just other instructions. Your submission should be typed in size 12 font, 1.5 line spacing, in Calibri or Arial with normal margins. And your submission should be about 2.5 pages in length or 1,000 words. That is for activity 1. So let's just look at the rubric. This is the rubric that we are going to use for activity 1. Firstly, 15 marks is awarded for the requirements of grade 4 versus grade 6 patterns, functions, and algebra. So let's just look at the last column. To earn 12 to 15 marks, you need to have a description of how the requirements of grade 4 patterns, functions, and algebra differ from the requirements of grade 6 patterns, functions, and algebra. Extensive reference to the CAPS document is made. So make reference to our CAPS document. You get marks for that. It is not your own ideas. You get the ideas and the research from your CAPS documents. So you need to reference the CAPS. You need to explain to Mr. Smith how grade 4 differs from grade 6, or other way around, how grade 6 differ from grade 4. So what is different? Highlight that and give examples. Then the second 15 marks is for the conceptual progression and increasing complexity. To earn 12 to 15 marks, you need to provide a discussion of the conceptual complexity and its progression by clearly illustrating exactly how the complexity increases. The implications for teaching and learning are discussed through examples which effectively illustrate the development of conceptual complexity. And this links now to your first ICE task. So use your ICE task, improve on that, make sure that you have really clearly illustrated the complexity increase from grade 4 to grade 6 by providing examples to illustrate the development. Then the next 10 marks goes towards the reasoning on advantages of incorporating ICT into lessons. So if you show a thorough understanding of the advantages of incorporating ICT in the classroom and provided convincing argument as why to Mr. Smith should use it and consider technology, you would earn 8 to 10 marks. Then if you have provided practical suggestions for implementing ICT in the classroom by creative and engaging suggestions, you would also earn 8 to 10 marks. So give practical suggestions, be enthusiastic, show your enthusiasm, and give reasons why it would positively enhance his teaching. So while I'm talking about Mr. Smith, you do not have to address him like in addressing him all the time, like saying, Mr. Smith, you have to do this and that. Mr. Smith, look here and there. You can leave out Mr. Smith. You can address your essay to any teacher. So you can just have a general discussion to any teacher. It doesn't have to be addressed to Mr. Smith. The components of your essay. You should have a title. Your title will be Activity 1, Knowledge of Content. It's the title. Then you will have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. That is the 3 parts of an essay, of any essay. Your introduction is normally one paragraph with an interesting sentence to state the topic and a few sentences to explain the order of your planning. Then you would have your body of the essay with a few paragraphs. And each paragraph has one main idea with supporting sentences. And the last sentence of your paragraph should link with the next paragraph for a logically organized flow of ideas. And then you end off your essay with a conclusion in which you summarize your points that you've made, and you have a strong statement to the end. Please, people, remember, a conclusion is not the past tense of an introduction. Please don't copy the introduction and just make it past tense. That's not a good conclusion. A good conclusion is like what Killen used in his books or other credible resources. Look at the end of the chapters. How did they summarize the key points, and how did they end off a chapter with a strong statement? Remember your reference list. Something very important that I would like to just say here is, please, if you don't have any headings, if you are planning not to have headings in your essay, then you don't have a heading like introduction, body, and conclusion. Then you leave it out. There's no such thing as a heading body. That's not a heading. Okay, there's no heading like introduction or conclusion. You can't just have those three headings. If you choose to have headings, it should look like something like this. This is just a suggestion. If you want to use it like this, you are welcome. If you don't want to use headings, you just use paragraphs. I will see this is your introduction. I will see the body, and I will see the conclusion. You don't have to use headings then. So this is if you choose headings. You can have a heading that say this is introduction, because you need other headings as well then. So then you name your introduction. Then you can have a heading like requirements of grade 4 versus grade 6, where you describe how the requirements of grade 4 patterns, functions, and algebra differ from the requirements of grade 6. Make reference to your CAPS document. Then you can have another heading, conceptual progression and increasing complexity, where you illustrate exactly how the complexity increases, and you also give examples. Very important here to give examples. Then you can have another heading, incorporating ICT into the classroom, where you give a short definition of ICT and how it's used in lessons. And then you can state the advantages of incorporating ICT into lessons, where you describe it and you argue why teachers should consider using ICT in the classroom. Then you can have another heading, practical suggestions for implementing ICT, make suggestions and give examples, and suitable reasons as to how it would positively assist in the development of pedagogical efficiency. And then you can have a heading, conclusion, because you used other headings. And you have your word count, 1,000 words. All right, so this is a suggestion of how you can approach your essay. You can also use this format and the suggestions even if you are not planning to use headings. You can just use this suggestions of how I would explain this in paragraphs. If you follow this, you would also then ensure that you have addressed all the requirements of this activity 1. Then I have summarized academic writing, and this is all from the article that I mentioned to you. The article's name is I've forgotten now the article's name. I've referenced it later on in my PDF. So you can read through the article as well as these slides. This will give you an idea of how to write an academic essay. So you can read through this in your own time. Make sure that you edit your essay, and that is how you improve your writing. So you start with a draft, and then you edit your draft and write your final version. Please, people, look out for grammar errors, look out for spelling errors, correct those before you submit. Very important to have a good mark, or to receive a good mark. There should be no spelling errors or grammar errors in your essay. Very important, reference list. Please consult your IIE quick reference guide on how to reference. Okay, that is activity 1 in a nutshell. Are there any questions? You state your word count at the end of your essay? Yes, please. At the end of activity 1, you state your word count. I am going to export this to a PDF, and then I would load it onto a VC Learn. It will be in the folder Module Guide and PoE. I will give you the PDF of this whole explanation of activity 1 as well as the academic writing section. Clarice, you discussed the whole content area of patterns, functions, and algebra, meaning you have to address all 3 topics. The topics are numeric patterns, geometric patterns, and number sentences. So you need to discuss them all and provide examples. Okay, so it's the whole content area. All right. Any other questions? I will also upload this recording for you under Module Guide and PoE. So everything relating to your PoE will be filed in that folder on VC Learn.